The Raven on Ashvale Hill. There was a house at the edge of Ashvale Hill, an aging, slate-roofed manor that seemed more stone than wood, more shadow than substance. Long abandoned, it brooded behind tangled hedgerows, its iron gate rusted ajar, groaning when the wind pressed through. Locals called it Hollowmere House, and they avoided it. Not because it was haunted, though some whispered it was, but because it watched. Valora Nightwell, a scholar of folklore and forgotten histories, had come to Ashvale to study the regional superstitions, those peculiar fragments of belief that clung to remote hills and half-erased villages. Her work demanded solitude and silence, and the villagers were only too happy to let her rent the old gatekeeper's cottage below Hollowmere. Valora found herself strangely drawn to the old house, not with idle curiosity, but a subtle, bone-deep pull, as though her very dreams were strung on the tension between its walls. By her second week, she noticed the raven. It came at dusk, always at the same time, perched atop the highest gable of Hollowmere House. Its feathers shimmered like oil, catching the red wash of the dying sun. It never cawed or flew, it only stared, watching her as she stood at her window, watching long after the stars woke. One evening, unable to ignore its silent vigil any longer, Valora climbed the hill. The path was overgrown and the air was oddly still. The world seemed to hush as she passed through the broken gate. Brambles clutched at her coat like pleading hands. When she stood before the house, she looked up and saw the raven above her, utterly still. Its eyes caught the last of the light, twin pinpricks like smoldering coals. "I'm not here to trespass," she murmured, embarrassed by the sound of her own voice. The bird tilted its head slowly, as if considering her, and then it vanished, without wingbeat or sound. One moment it perched, and the next the gable was empty. Valora's heart leapt in her chest. She turned to leave, but something shimmered in the air, and she paused. On the ground before her, where no light ought to fall, lay a patch of shadow shaped like a doorway, and within it, faintly, she could hear the echo of music. A piano playing a distant, aching waltz. The manor doors creaked open. She should have left. Every part of her rational mind screamed retreat. But the music pulled at something deeper, a memory she didn't know she had, a yearning like forgotten grief. She stepped through the threshold. The air inside was thick with dust and time. Moonlight filtered through shattered glass, painting the walls in stripes of silver. The music had stopped, but the sense of presence remained, something unseen, coiled in the corners, listening. The parlor was exactly as she imagined an abandoned manor would be. Rotted velvet chairs, a fireplace choked with cinders, portraits whose faces had faded into blurs. But then she noticed something impossible. On the side table sat a fresh teacup, its contents still steaming. A breeze brushed her cheek. No, not a breeze. A breath. She turned. A figure stood at the far end of the room, tall and draped in a coat too long for the eye to follow, the edges of it tapering into shadow. Its face was pale, almost paper-like, with eyes too large for its sockets, and in them, glinting like obsidian, was the unmistakable gaze of the raven. "You returned," it said. Its voice was not a whisper, but the suggestion of sound, like leaves scraping stone. "I've never been here before," Valora managed. "But you remember it, don't you?" She blinked. Images flickered behind her eyes, a cold cradle of stone, hands reaching from mirrors, feathers drifting in hallways of smoke. She staggered. The figure moved closer. "You left something behind. That's why you're drawn. All those nights of restless sleep, the ache behind your eyes. You've carried absence like a wound." "What are you?" she asked, forcing steadiness into her voice. The Raven Man smiled, and it was a hollow, joyless thing. "A watcher, a keeper, a collector." "Of what?" "Of what is lost." He gestured toward the staircase, its banister thick with dust. "It waits for you, in the attic." Valora should have fled, but she was already moving, each step slower than the last, her feet heavy with dread and memory. The stairs groaned like they hadn't borne weight in centuries. Cobwebs clung to her like veils. She reached the top landing, where the air was colder, weighted, almost metallic. A single door stood at the end of the hall, cracked slightly ajar. From behind it came the faint rustling of feathers. She pushed it open. The attic was a dome of forgotten things, broken trunks, yellowed books, cracked mirrors. In the center sat an ornate chair, and upon it, another version of herself, pale, unmoving, eyes wide and vacant, not dead, not alive, trapped. Valora staggered backward, bile rising in her throat. The Raven Man appeared beside her without sound. "Some souls leave pieces behind when they flee," he said. "A moment of sorrow, a decision unmade, a truth denied. These fragments fester. They become hollows, and hollows draw the watchers." She stared at the lifeless figure in the chair. "What did I leave behind?" He extended his hand. "Touch her and you will know." Her hand trembled as she reached out. The moment her fingers brushed the figure's shoulder, a rush of cold exploded through her mind. Images surged like a flood, a library lit by candlelight, a ritual circle, a raven pinned by silver threads, words spoken in desperation. Take it from me. Take the burden. Take the pain. And then the dark. She gasped, stumbling away. She remembered now. Years ago, in her grief, she had found a book. Not just folklore, real knowledge, forbidden. She had invoked the Watchers. She had offered a piece of herself in exchange for silence, for forgetting. I asked you to take my sorrow, she whispered. And I did, said the Raven Man, but nothing is taken without cost. She looked again at the other Valora, the one who bore the burden she had surrendered. What happens if I reclaim her? You will remember everything, the Watcher said. Every wound, every choice. The pain will return. But so will what was lost. Your fire, your clarity, your soul. And if I leave her, she remains. The raven will return, and in time there will be nothing left of you to reclaim. The choice was clear, terrifying but clear. Valora knelt before the chair. I'm ready. She embraced the figure, and darkness swallowed her. She woke on the ground outside Hollowmere House. Dawn crept over Ashvale Hill in threads of gold. The raven sat beside her on the grass, watching. Its feathers were dusted with frost. Valora felt different, heavier, sharper, whole. The memories had returned, not just the pain, but the brilliance too. The love she lost, the fire that once drove her to seek truth in forgotten places. She remembered who she was, and who she had once dared to become. The raven rose into the sky, a blur of black against the new morning. It did not look back. Valora stood, brushing dirt from her coat. Hollowmere House was silent now, just a shell. But within her stirred something awakened. She walked down the hill, no longer afraid of the shadows. Somewhere behind her, in a realm just beyond the veil of vision, the Watcher watched and waited for the next soul who might forget what it means to feel.